The great hall of the royal palace glowed with 1,000 candles that night. Silk gowns swept across the polished floor, and laughter drifted through the air like music. It was the night of the royal ball, the most important night of the year, when every noble family in the kingdom gathered under one roof to see and be seen. Elira Vos stood near the edge of the dance floor, smoothing the soft blue fabric of her gown with nervous fingers. She was not a loud woman, nor one who sought attention. She had spent 3 years quietly devoted to Damien Cross, a young alpha lord whose ambition had always burned brighter than his warmth. She had told herself that his coldness was simply the way he was, that beneath his guarded manner there was love, even if he rarely showed it. Tonight, she had hoped, might be different. She had heard whispers that Damien planned to make an announcement. Her heart had fluttered with a foolish kind of hope. Perhaps he would finally speak of their future in front of the court. Perhaps he would finally call her his. The musicians paused, and a hush spread through the hall as Damien stepped forward. He looked every bit the confident alpha the court admired, his shoulders squared, his chin lifted. Elira watched him with a small, hopeful smile, her hands clasped together at her waist. "Tonight," Damien announced, his voice carrying easily across the silent room, "I am pleased to share wonderful news. I am to be engaged to Lady Seraphine Duval." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Elira's smile faltered, then froze completely. Lady Seraphine, daughter of one of the wealthiest alpha families in the kingdom, stepped forward beside Damien, her expression triumphant. Elira felt the floor tilt beneath her feet. "As for Elira Vos," Damien continued, not even glancing her way, "our arrangement has run its course. I wish her well in finding someone more suited to her simple tastes." The words landed like a blow. Elira heard gasps around her, felt eyes turning toward her from every direction. Her cheeks burned with humiliation as whispers spread like wildfire through the hall. 3 years of devotion, dismissed in a single sentence, in front of everyone who mattered. She wanted to run. Her feet felt frozen to the floor, her throat tight with the effort of holding back tears. She had given him her loyalty, her patience, her heart, and he had thrown it all away as if it meant nothing. Just as she gathered the courage to turn and flee the hall, a deep voice cut through the murmuring crowd, silencing it instantly. "Is this truly how the great Lord Cross treats those who have stood beside him?" Every head turned toward the raised platform at the far end of the hall, where the throne stood. King Alaric Thorne, ruler of the kingdom, had risen from his seat. He was a man the court both admired and feared, known throughout the land for his sharp mind and his cold detachment from matters of the heart. It was said the king had never shown interest in taking a queen, no matter how many noble daughters had been presented to him over the years. Now, he was descending the steps of the platform, his dark cloak trailing behind him, his gaze fixed entirely on Elira. The crowd parted before him as the Red Sea might part before a storm. Damien's confident expression crumbled into confusion, then alarm, as the king crossed the entire length of the ballroom without pause. Lady Seraphine's triumphant smile disappeared entirely. Elira could not move. She watched, breathless, as the king came to stand before her. Up close, his presence was overwhelming, yet there was nothing cruel in his eyes. There was only a quiet, steady intensity that made her chest tighten with something she could not name. He knelt. A king kneeling before her in front of the entire court. "My lady," he said, his voice softer now, though it still carried through the silent hall, "you deserve far better than to be discarded in front of strangers. You deserve far better than a man too blind to see your worth." He took her trembling hand in his. Elira searched his face for any sign of mockery, any hint that this was some cruel joke at her expense. She found none, only calm certainty. "I have watched you for over a year," the king continued, rising to his full height while still holding her hand. "I have seen your kindness to the servants who serve this court. I have seen your patience with those who overlook you. I have seen your strength, quiet as it is, and I have long believed you deserved a place of honor, not humiliation." The hall was utterly silent now, every noble holding their breath. "I could not speak while you were bonded to another," he said, "but that bond is broken now, by his own words, in front of witnesses enough to fill this hall, so I will not wait a moment longer to say what I have long known to be true. Elira Vos, I claim you as my queen." A collective gasp swept through the crowd. Damien's face had gone pale as parchment. Lady Seraphine looked as though she might faint. Whispers erupted immediately, a wave of shocked voices rising and falling like the tide. Elira's mind spun. Surely this could not be real. Surely a king, admired and respected throughout the land, could not simply choose her, an ordinary Omega, with no great fortune and no political power to offer him. "Your Majesty," she whispered, her voice barely audible even to herself, "I do not understand." "Why would you do this?" "Because you are worth choosing," he said simply. "Not for your family's name, not for any alliance it might bring me, but because of who you are." In the days that followed, the palace buzzed with talk of nothing else. Some nobles whispered that the king had lost his senses. Others murmured that Elira had somehow bewitched him, that no ordinary woman could capture the attention of a man so famously unmoved by matters of romance. A few, quieter voices admitted they had always thought Damien a fool for the way he treated her. Elira herself moved through the palace halls in a daze, uncertain of her place in this new and unfamiliar world. She had spent years learning to expect little, to accept scraps of affection and be grateful for them. Now she was expected to believe that she was worthy of a crown, of a king's devotion, of a nation's respect. Did not come easily. King Alaric, for his part, showed no signs of regret or hesitation. He sought her out each day, not with grand gestures meant for show, but with small, steady acts of kindness. He asked after her comfort in her new chambers. He listened when she spoke, truly listened, in a way Damien never had. He defended her without hesitation whenever a courtier dared to whisper behind her back, silencing gossip with a single sharp glance. One afternoon, as Elira walked through the palace gardens, trying to clear her troubled mind, she found the king waiting near a fountain, his hands clasped behind his back. "You seem troubled," he said gently as she approached. "I keep waiting for this to be a mistake," Elira admitted, surprising herself with her honesty. "I keep waiting for you to realize you have chosen wrong." The king turned to face her fully. "I have ruled this kingdom for many years," he said. "I have made countless decisions, some wise, some foolish. But choosing you was not a mistake, Elira. It was the clearest decision I have ever made." She looked up at him, searching once more for any trace of doubt in his expression, and found only warmth. "Give yourself time," he said softly. "You do not need to trust this all at once. I am not asking you to believe in me today. I am only asking you to let me prove myself, day by day, until you do." Something in her chest loosened at his words, a tightness she had carried for years beginning, slowly, to ease. Not everyone in the court welcomed the change so gracefully. Damien, stripped of the respect he once commanded, grew increasingly desperate as his standing crumbled. Lady Seraphine's family, embarrassed by the scandal, quietly withdrew their support of the engagement, leaving Damien with neither Elira nor the wealthy match he had abandoned her for. Bitterness festered in him, and he began looking for any way to reclaim his lost reputation. At a formal gathering held weeks later to celebrate the harvest season, Damien saw his chance. Nobles from every corner of the kingdom had gathered in the grand hall, and the king and Elira stood together near the head table, greeting guests as they arrived. "Your Majesty," Damien called out, stepping forward with false confidence, "forgive my boldness, but many in this court wonder at the suddenness of your announcement. Some wonder whether Lady Elira sought this position through less than honest means." A ripple of unease moved through the gathered nobles. Elira felt her stomach twist, old fears of humiliation rising quickly to the surface. She fought the urge to look away, to shrink back as she once might have. King Alaric did not raise his voice, but something in his tone turned the room utterly silent. "It is curious," he said calmly, "that a man who publicly humiliated the woman he claimed to care for now questions her honesty. Perhaps we should discuss instead the letters found detailing your arrangement with Lady Seraphine's family, made months before you ever ended your bond with Elira." Damien's face drained of color. Murmurs spread instantly through the hall. "You used her family's connections while quietly securing a wealthier match behind her back," the king continued. "You discarded her the moment something more profitable appeared." That is not the behavior of a man concerned with honesty. Damien opened his mouth to protest, but no words came. The court's sympathy, already thin, evaporated entirely. Whispers of disgust replaced the earlier murmurs of doubt. Elira, finding a steadiness she had not known she possessed, stepped forward beside the king. "I spent 3 years believing I was not enough," she said, her voice clear and unwavering. "I believed that if I simply tried harder, gave more, asked for less, I might finally earn your affection. I understand now that no amount of trying would have ever been enough for you, because you were never looking for someone to love. You were looking for someone to use." The hall remained silent, every eye fixed on her. "I am grateful, in a strange way, for what happened at the ball," she continued. "It showed me the truth about you, and it showed me the truth about myself. I am not the burden you made me feel like. I never was." Damien, humiliated beyond recovery, excused himself from the gathering, his reputation in ruins. He would not trouble the court again. In the weeks that followed, whispers of doubt about Elira faded entirely, replaced by quiet admiration. The court watched as she grew steadily more confident, guided gently by the king's unwavering support. She began attending council meetings, offering thoughtful observations that surprised even the most seasoned advisors. She visited the kitchens and the stables, remembering names and faces that others of noble birth often overlooked, earning quiet loyalty among the palace staff. King Alaric watched her transformation with quiet pride, never once seeking credit for the change, understanding that the strength she now showed had always been within her, simply waiting for the chance to be seen. On the day of her coronation, the same great hall that had once witnessed her humiliation was transformed into a place of celebration. Elira stood at the center of the room, dressed in deep gold, a crown resting upon her head. The same nobles who had once whispered cruelly behind her back now bowed before her, not out of obligation, but with genuine respect earned through months of witnessing her quiet strength. King Alaric took her hand as the court erupted into applause, his eyes warm with something far deeper than duty. "You once asked me why I chose you," he murmured, quiet enough that only she could hear. "I hope by now you understand." Elira smiled, a real and steady smile, free of the doubt that had once clouded her heart. "I do," she said. "You saw me before I could see myself." Outside the palace walls, word of the new queen spread quickly through the kingdom, carried by travelers and merchants alike. They spoke not of scandal or gossip, but of a woman who had risen from public humiliation to become a queen respected for her kindness and quiet strength. They spoke of a king who had looked past wealth and status to choose someone simply because he recognized her true worth. And within the palace walls, Elira Foss, once discarded in front of an entire court, stood now as queen, not because a king had rescued her from despair, but because she had finally learned to stand tall on her own, with a partner beside her who had simply helped her find the courage to do so. The ballroom where she had once been humiliated became, in time, the very place where she felt most at home, filled not with whispers of pity, but with the quiet certainty of a woman who had found, at last, exactly where she belonged. Seasons turned, and the kingdom prospered under the steady partnership of its king and queen. Elira never forgot the lessons of that painful night, but she no longer let them define her. She used the memory instead as a quiet reminder to be gentle with those the court often overlooked, the younger nobles nervous at their first ball, the servants who worked tirelessly without recognition, the quiet ones standing at the edges of every gathering, hoping simply to be seen. She started a tradition of her own, a smaller gathering held once a season, open not only to the wealthy families of the court, but to merchants, craftsmen, and their families as well. It was, at first, considered unusual by some of the older nobles. But King Alaric supported her fully, and slowly, the gathering became beloved throughout the kingdom, a symbol of the kind of ruler Elira had become. Damien's name faded slowly from the conversations of the court, remembered only as a cautionary tale told to young alphas about the cost of pride and carelessness. Elira thought of him occasionally, not with anger, but with a distant sort of understanding. He had shown her, in the cruelest way possible, what she did not want. In doing so, he had unknowingly cleared the path toward what she truly deserved. Years later, when younger Omegas in the court whispered nervously about their own uncertain futures, Elira made a point of speaking with them personally. She told them, gently but firmly, that worth was never something to be granted by another person's approval. It was something that existed already, waiting patiently to be recognized, sometimes by others, but always, eventually, by oneself. "I once believed I needed someone else to tell me I mattered," she told a young Omega girl, trembling before her first ball. "I have since learned that belief was only half true. It helped to have someone stand beside me and see my worth when I could not see it myself. But in the end, it was my own strength that carried me forward, not his crown, not his title, simply my own quiet refusal to disappear." The girl left that conversation with her shoulders a little straighter, carrying with her a small piece of the courage Elira had fought so hard to find. And so the story of the ball was remembered, not as a tale of rejection, but as the beginning of a much greater story, one of resilience, quiet strength, and a love built on the simple, steady act of truly seeing another person for who they are.